Do you feel like you've got a certain attachment style as a man that is impacting on your relationships with others? Well, today I'm going to touch on this in today's podcast episode. Welcome back to the Men's Mental Health and Growth podcast. So, I wanted to touch on this because there's a lot of things talked about in these days around like relationships, masculinity, femininity, and all these energy types. And by the way, whatever gender we identify as, we all have a masculine and feminine energy. But anyway, these kind of things are always thrown out there. What is it to be a good man? What is it to be a good woman? Blah blah blah, all this kind of thing. And then people start attacking each other, and I don't resonate with that when we start attacking each other. I'm very fortunate in my life. I have a network and people close to me who, like, I know guys I'm going to support, I know women I'm going to support, or whatever gender, people are that I'm going to support in my life. And we have very healthy respect for one another. And I know that's not the case in the world. I know we all go for different things. But I thought it was really important to talk about this today because as a man, I've seen it talked about a lot with women talking about like what attachment styles they've had and the fact that they might be drawn to certain relationships, particularly romantic relationships and all this, in that particular area based on their attachment style. And it's great that people are aware of this. And there's three main attachment styles that you can look at. And it's developed by a psychologist called John Bowlby and then expanded on in the 70s by Mary Ainsworth. And basically, there's three types of attachment styles, if you're not familiar with this, and it impacts your relationships if you're not aware of it and you don't know how to deal with your type. There's a secure type of attachment. This is where you're very comfortable in who you are, and actually, you tend to be very honest with people. You tend to be have good boundaries in your relationships. You don't tend to be drawn to drama. And anyone who's kind of like ghosting you or abandoning you is gone from your life. Like a secure attachment is generally like the healthy one. Now, unfortunately, not a lot of people I can honestly say until I got into like the healing space and the personal growth world that I've met that are actually in that secure attachment, including myself. I wouldn't put myself in that category. Then there's another two types. And sometimes people are like, I'm secure, and then you see their behavior and you see they're not secure. I've been there, trust me. I've seen someone who claim they were secure attached and actually they were very avoidant, which I'm going to go into. So the next type is avoidant. Well, I just covered that, might as well say it, although that's technically the third one on the list usually. But anyway, avoidant attachment. Now this is when you can't handle emotions very well. So you usually subconsciously will, if anything gets difficult in terms of conversations or even having to sit with your own emotions, or that can be anxious as well, and like things get very close to you but you're scared of, like, say you were close to a romantic partner or someone you liked and then things got close, you could subconsciously shut down and be like, I'm not interested, I don't want this, because it's a defense mechanism, because you want to avoid pain. So you just avoid, you switch off, you run away from potential pain even though there may not be there, right? That's an avoidant. And then you got anxious. And this is, by the way, not what you're displaying outside, it's often what you're displaying inside, but people's behaviors will often model what's going on in the inside. And then you got anxious attachment. Now this is about when you like get very nervous, get very agitated about like something potentially happening in one of your relationships, whether it's a romantic relationship or not. Very like nervous about like hearing what someone says. If you develop like a romantic connection, you may be like a little bit anxious about what they're thinking of you, what they're doing, all those kind of things. And these degrees, by the way, what I'm talking about, like the avoidant and anxious, obviously there's different levels. You could be a little bit avoidant, you could be a lot avoidant, you could be a little bit anxious and very anxious. But I'm just going to be really open with you. Anxious attachment is what I would fit under, even though it would surprise a lot of people because I play very cool on the outside. But from a young age, I lost relatives. I was alone quite a lot, even though I had a loving family, and therefore it created this anxiousness in me. And therefore, if I'm like, I'm probably not on the severe end of it, but I've worked a lot through it, and I've healed my wounds, and I've attracted great people into my life as a result. But if I like generally, if I got to a point where, by my twenties, I got to a point that if like a stranger shouted something at me or someone said something like nasty on the football pitch or those kind of things, like, and I didn't like, that's not really going to bother me. But if it was like someone close to me said something hurtful or like went quiet on me or something like that, or really disapproved of something I said, um, or did, then I'd get quite anxious, particularly around dating relationships. I'd be quite anxious. And as a result, I would display avoidant behavior, like, not being overeager and those kind of things on the outside. But inside, for a lot of my 20s, I was very anxious. And even like in the start of my 30s, right? And it's something I've got to still look at now a little bit, like anxious attachment, just being honest. But I'd rather be honest and sit in myself than just claim, oh, I'm secure and nothing. Well, secure doesn't mean nothing bothers you, by the way, but being honest with yourself is really a key point to moving forward. But actually, if you're unaware of these, it can really impact your relationships. Like, you could have an anxious person and avoidant in a relationship, and yeah, like, and there's many cases where that's worked, but they just have very good communication. But if you're unaware of, an avoidant, that'd also be a challenge, right? Anxious might work because they're both like really wanting to be with each other. Like, yeah, again, but it's all about communication, your boundaries, and know where you are, and being honest with yourself. But yeah, it can really impact me, I find, as a man, when I particularly didn't realize I was being anxious underneath, and I would avoid a lot of things, a lot of conversations, until I started like really working myself. So the points I'm going to give you, like, are relevant whatever attachment style you are. But in particular, obviously we're talking about anxious and avoidant, but if you're very secure, although yeah, you still might like a secure person would still be listening to this. They're just curious, right? So whatever attachment style, I believe these points will apply to you. So number one, get honest with yourself, right? I've just talked about that. Right? Get honest with yourself, your behaviors and feelings. Not just like how do you act to like display and look good to other people, but actually inside, how are you feeling? And how are you feeling inside? Get very honest with yourself. If you're like, this is one thing that really bugs me when because it doesn't help them and it doesn't help other people. When people say, I don't give a shit about anything, when they do, because they wouldn't say that to everyone, right? And then that gives a message to other people, oh, well, why do I worry so much? It's like that other person is insecure if they're shouting that kind of thing out, right? But get very honest with yourself. Be like, if something bothers you, if something triggers you, if something makes you anxious, you don't have to tell it to the whole world, no. But just get very honest with yourself, and then you can work with a coach closely. There's all kinds of experts in these things these days, right? So get very honest. Number two, sit with yourself. Like I've done like 20 minutes in silence a day until like things came up for me. Get comfortable sitting with the discomfort of sitting with yourself, right? So I'll say that again. Get comfortable sitting with the discomfort with yourself. Because the more you can sit with it, the more you can process stuff, the more you can hear you and understand your needs. Number three, essential. I've talked about this before, but it's so, so critical. Inner child loving. Love your inner child, because inside of you is often an unseen child, a child who's scared of facing those emotions, maybe a child who's like very anxious. But if you can go back, and it comes from childhood, these attachment styles, by the way, always. So if you can go back to the 3, 4, 5-year-old version of yourself, because we get programmed in the first 6, 7 years of our life, right? But if you can go back to that like 3, 4, 5-year-old version of you and allow them to feel what they're feeling, right? Allow him to feel what he's feeling. He's going like, oh, I'm really anxious about this or nervous about this, or oh, I'm feeling off about this, then go and sit that child and love that child, because you can give that child that real love that they need, that inner child within you. So that's the key one. And then my fourth point is study and ideally hang around with people very secure, like very calm, very cool, right? As much as possible, people are very secure in their own body. You've got healthy relationships and all aspects of the phrase. But the more you can be, because you're going to pick up on that energy. We pick up on energy. But if you're like hanging out with people who are like just lashing out, arguing, shouting abuse at each other, that's going to impact you as well. So start finding more grounded examples you can hang out with. And when you're on your own, listen to audios, listen to experts on the matter as much as possible. Because this does impact our interactions with other people. But like I said, those are some steps you can do to really sit with yourself and then start modeling it from others to really help you work through your attachment. And like I say, you may always have a little bit of avoidant, maybe have a little bit of anxiousness, but there's things like you can put in place. And I've seen couples who, like in particular, I know relationship doesn't just mean intimate relationship, it can mean all aspects of it. But there's couples who make it work. One's an avoidant, one's an anxious, because they have really good boundaries, really good communication mechanisms. Now, not everyone's going to get it. Not like some people, you could talk about what I've just shared with you. Like I could share this with people, they'd be like, "What are you talking about?" And that's okay, right? They're not in this space, right? But the right people will always resonate with you. So if you understand yourself more, read up on Bowlby's work or watch YouTube. Probably summarize it better because he's probably got some old school books, right? So just really understand yourself, because then that's going to impact on your relationships with other people. Like the more you can be with yourself and accept yourself, the more you're going to attract the right people into your life as well. So that's what I want to share with you today. Thank you so much for listening, and remember to lead with your heart and not with fear.